Historically speaking, the kitchen has always been a safe space for women to converse. A place to discuss complex, embarrassing, and shameful topics. Expanding on this age-old generational practice, I want to create a space for the next generation to learn from our stories. I am Jessica Nichole, and this is Eat Like a Lady. Today I'm going to be chatting with Kimberly Walker and Amber J. Phillips. The focus for this episode is career, dating, and feminine expectations. Today we're going to be preparing a honey mustard chicken salad with a garlic sourdough bread.
Well, my name is Amber J. Phillips. I'm also known as Amber Abundance across the internet. I live at that intersection as someone who also uses comedy as a vehicle to get people to care about things that they typically do not care about. Yeah. I feel very proud to be Black, but I also know even in my community, we don't take enough time to make room and space for queer people or room and space to talk about fatness and fat phobia and how that's really harming all of us. So I use storytelling and humor to kind of bring people into that world. Like, I know you can love me because I'm Black, but I also want you to love me because I'm queer, and I want you to love me and honor me because I'm fat as well. But I have found I didn't come out until I was in my late 20s. So I felt like I was entering puberty again. So there was a ton of stuff that I just had to relearn, like, what do I like? How do I want to present on dates? What do I want to wear? How do I want to show up as my most authentic self so that it gives space for someone to get to know me too?
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah,
how is that different from how you were raised in terms of how you chose to present yourself?
So I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and I was raised by my wonderful mother. So she was a single mom, but I feel like that doesn't give our family enough credit for how we worked it out together. So I feel like when older Black women are giving you tips for dating men, it's like solid tips, but it's kind of like my mom would be like, make sure his shoes are shine.
Oh.
You know, I'm in my third, like, who's shining their shoes?
Who's shining
the
Jordans.
Jordans. But it kind of works. It kind of works. You don't want nobody with some busted down Air Force. Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like so many of us are raised with, like, yes, my family wanted me to go to school and college, but they wanted all of us to be wives. And a big way my family thought you did that was through cooking, right? Like, the way to a man's heart
is through his stomach.
But from my experience, the men in my family didn't have no taste. You know, they were cooking for each other. My aunts, my grandmothers, it was a competition of them, right? Okay. So even though they said all these things, the way they played out weren't aligning, right? My grandfather would eat anything my grandmother put in front of him. But my aunties, her sisters, would not. So for a long time when I was younger, I didn't like to cook because I felt like every time we cooked, there was some kind of narrative around, I need to be doing this for someone else's pleasure and not my own. So it wasn't until I got to college, I went to a women's college in Pittsburgh. I would cook for my friends a lot. And I think that opened me up to being able to do things for my pleasure.
I love that. I am a writer. I write TV and film. I do comedy, grounded sci-fi, and horror.
How does dating fit into that for you?
I mean, does it? I found that it's easier to date somebody who doesn't have my same job, so not a writer. Once you actually start writing seriously, you become seen as what would be considered a professional, then you kind of start to come across a lot of men who are like, hey, can you read my script? Like, here's my short film.
No.
Like while you're on a date?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so you kind of have to watch out for that in terms of finding somebody who actually likes you and doesn't want to try to use you to get in the Soho house. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I grew up with, really my grandparents kind of raised me because my mom worked at, she was a dispatch for 911. So she was always at work the wee hours of the night. And so even though I grew up in a very traditional household, my grandparents are from Louisiana.
Where?
Lake Charles.
Okay.
Where y'all from? Shreveport?
Shreveport, yeah. How do you know?
I got family there too.
Oh,
yeah, Baton Rouge, all of that. We all over. But they really weren't thinking about it for as traditional as they kind of came across. I grew up just really feeling like particularly in heterosexual relationships, it was just really supposed to be an equal partnership straight down the middle. Yeah, which feels remarkable now that I'm an adult.
Definitely.
I'm like, how did y'all do that? But that was, I don't know if it was just because they were older, they were like set in their ways, they had developed a groove. But yeah, I really grew up just feeling like this is the way this thing is supposed to go. So when I started dating, I feel like boys have been growing up in other households where there were a lot of
gender
expectations and gender roles, and I was like, well, what you doing for me? Which was nothing, really. The answer to that was nothing.
I think there's a lot of expectations on who everyone should be when they enter into a relationship instead of finding out who people actually are.
Yes.
And that was always the biggest barrier to me in my 20s is like, you go out on a date and you instantly become who you think you're supposed to be instead of actually being who you are and allowing people to meet you in that. I think that's what has been really beautiful and cool about coming out is like, I feel like I get a reset. I don't have to do what I've done before. I can actually take a whole new approach. There was a time where I felt like I wasn't doing it right, but now I'm just like, I would consider myself a femme, right? Like but I also grew up in a house full of women, so I have masculine qualities, right? Like I will make my own way. I will create my own home. It was just us
You mean
girls.
like financially?
Financially, like physically, you know, there's certain things like we just all pitched in. We were an equal opportunity household. So when I go into dates, sometimes I feel like, do I have, like my biggest thing is I'm already 5'11". I don't like wearing heels. And I had this idea in my head that if I wanted to be desirable when I go out, I had to put on heels and a dress. And 30-plus-year-old Amber's not doing that anymore. It's like, I want to feel like myself. I want to look like myself. I have a cute style, okay? So I'm gonna wear what I want to wear. And I think sometimes there's this expectation of like girliness and dolling up and all these things.
That's absolutely true about that desirability piece. I found that like, even if I feel like you grew up in a place, and like here's the thing, you know, growing up, that didn't mean that it was not, because I felt like my grandparents had an equal partnership, there weren't certain things that still were very traditional, like when it came to like my cycle, I had to hide my pads. I was told you have to put it in the cabinet underneath the bathroom. It can never be seen. You know, your grandfather doesn't want to see that. So there were certain things that still felt like, as I got older, I was like, oh, this is not
super antiquated.
Okay now. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was the shame. But like, just as you know, grow up, the things you do when you know you're going to be going on a date with a man, the exhaustive practices of preparing for the date that like now I try.
You talking about like physically or mentally?
Oh my
like
God.
Shaving
Maybe both.
and
The
all
shaving,
those things.
the becoming a hairless chinchilla, being an eel. You know, like being as slick as humanly possible before. It's like, why? Why am I doing this?
We grown, we too old.
Why am I
Meanwhile,
hairless?
they be showing up to the date in a t-shirt that they wore all day.
A full
They
hairy
didn't even
mammal.
change for you.
All day. Been to a barbecue, worked a job, and just showed up at the date. Like, hello.
I am actually recently divorced, and I have
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have not been actively dating. It's interesting because before I chose to get a divorce, I had already signed up with a therapist. I was like, I'm not going to be one of those people that leaves a relationship, hops into a next one, and then repeats all the same mistakes all over again. So that's actually what I've spent the past few months working on, is what makes me happy, what makes me comfortable.
Did you find some things you want to share?
I did. I started journaling and just remembering what I liked to do before dating even became a thing. Like, as early back as I can remember, what did I just enjoy doing that made me laugh and smile and feel good? Dancing was one of them, and cooking was the other one. And just cooking differently, though, in the sense that I just started studying indigenous cooking practices, which led to this whole spiritual transformation for me, and being able to like touch food and ingredients and understanding where they come from, and just things that made me feel good. In terms of how I dress, that was a bigger challenge.
Wow.
I realized for a vast majority of my life, I dressed in ways that hid my body. And so I learned how to dress in ways that made me feel invisible. I can move through the world. No one's going to harm me. No one's going to look at me and make me feel uncomfortable or unsafe. So now, 30 plus years old, it's saying, I have autonomy over my body. I'm going to choose how I want to dress. If it's sweatpants today, it's sweatpants. If it's a tightly fitted dress, it's a tightly fitted dress. But just knowing that I'm in control of my body now. So that has been like the biggest thing that I've learned. And I feel like now that I have all that, the universe was just like, and male attention's coming your way. So I'm just now at a place where I'm like, I'm open to dating. I'm open to meeting new people and talking to new people and just establishing like new relationships now that I've been able to start to challenge some of the things that I learned when I was a child.
Are you finding that you are dating people that maybe pre-marriage you would have never dated? Are you entertaining?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because the biggest thing is like what you're saying, yours is the opposite, but the gender roles.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household that fit those gender roles. Dad protects, provides, mom takes care of the household. And watching that dynamic growing up, I knew that's not quite the pattern that I wanted to follow, but still ended up following that pattern anyway. And now I'm more like you. It's like, no, I want a genuine partnership. I want someone that can lead and follow. I want someone that can protect, provide, nurture, and cook and clean, just like I can do all those same things as well.
It's the cook and clean. That's how you get this ring.
That's how you get this
ring.
Isn't
that how Cardi B says? Because I'm not
we start a girl group. After we finish this salad, we're going to start a group.
So given everything that you know now, what advice would you give the next generation of women?
I just feel like there's a million other more interesting things to develop before dating.
That's it.
Not that I don't want people to develop, like, I think we should all learn how to be better friends to each other. My friendships have lasted me beyond who I've had sex with. The idea that we have to always start there, that's not the only way to build community. There are so many ways to build community, and it's not just, in fact, putting all that pressure on a partnership is kind of what I feel like harms a lot of relationships.
Absolutely. But like when we grew up, it was very much like the single you before you find your husband and you get in cisgender heterosexual relationships. That's the before you. That's not the most fully realized person that you're going to become.
So not until you enter into a romantic partnership
and have kids. That's going to be the real you.
Wow.
Once you become a wife and
so you were forever incomplete unless you would achieve
there's
those
an
goals,
idea that like as a single person, you're not a full, particularly as a Black woman, that you're just not a fully like realized human being. Like because you haven't done those things, you haven't been claimed, and you haven't given birth to anything else that will exist.
Lord Jesus.
Yeah, nobody's claimed you. You know, you're just like a feral cat on the street. And it's like, that's
how it feels.
That's sometimes how they treat you. Like, I remember being in what was called a small group, which was just, outside of the church, people would get together, have like a Bible study. And there was one small group I wanted to be in that was closer to my side of town. And I'll never forget the woman who was over it told me I couldn't be in it because it was only for married people, and they would not allow single and married people to like be together. And they were just like, no, you got to be in the other group. That's where the singles are. And I was like, well, the singles are like 20 miles away.
You.
Right. They did not want Leonard praying with me in the small group. And I was like, I don't even want Leonard.
Mercy.
No.
I don't even want Leonard. But there's definitely like that, idea. I'm sure we all feel it,
I would go as far as saying society makes you feel like you failed. You failed. You did something wrong because, like you said, no one claimed you. No one wanted to marry you.
Which is crazy.
You did not do something good enough in order to become a wife and a mother. And it's interesting because it's easy to stand here and laugh and talk about it now, but when you're in it and you're going through it, it's actually a very painful process because it takes a while to shift your thinking and realize I'm not a failure. I just wanted something different, and that's okay. It's totally okay. Thank you guys for joining me. Great conversation, great food.
Okay, the dressing is good.
Thank you.
The dressing is very good.
This is actually good.
I love that clip is so
Hilarious.
funny. Where she's just like,
The $1 million chicken.
what did you season this with? Nothing.
Okay, I haven't seen it. I don't think I haven't seen that before.
You're